So, hi and welcome to Voices from the World with FUF, the Swedish Development Forum. Our main goal is to spread knowledge about sustainable global development so more people can act for a fair and equal world. This could be about environment, peace and conflict, or the sustainable development goals, just for an example. My name is Matilda Andrén and I work with event and communications here at FUF. Today, we're going to discuss the current situation in Mozambique that has been hit by violence, especially in the north, and the outside world has got very little information about what's really happening there right now. So together with me, we have Associate Professor Yussuf Adam, live from Maputo in Mozambique. He's an historian who's been working with teams related to development and people participation in government. After working more than 40 years at the University Eduardo Mondlane Center of African Studies, Department of History at Faculties of Art and Letters, he now works as an independent researcher and consultant. Welcome, Yussuf.
Thank you.
Yeah, so as I said, Mozambique right now, especially in the north, struggles with attacks and violence. But can we start off with some background stories on what is happening?
Look, the situation, as in any situation of war, and in a country like Mozambique, the information is not something which is easily available. Okay, and there are many contradictory interpretations, and in a situation where the government also wants to tell its own story, it doesn't work very much. Like, for example, we have at this moment everyone is discussing Mozambique because there was an attack at Palma. And Palma is about 10 kilometers from the French Total installations of their LNG plant. So that was, went around the world. But I received some information now that Palma was being attacked again. There were, it is not totally void of the insurgents. They are not out. So it's quite complicated we are about 2,000 kilometers from here there. And probably most of my contacts, they don't have much money to have their cell phones working. The network is quite strange, and they are afraid of being heard by someone, etc.
Yeah, and so what's the reason for all the violence?
For some, they are Islamic State, which I don't think it exists in Mozambique. Probably they could have some people in helping, but I'm, as far as I can see, this is a revolt. It's a revolt of the population against the state, against corruption, against the fact that they lost their land and their trees and their whatever they had to the petrol companies, and they didn't receive what they thought should be a fair payment for what they have lost. And then, the characterization of so I call them Mashababus, which is the local name given to them by the population, is that, oh yes, they are terrorists, they cut heads, yes, but at the same time, we start getting, how do you say, results in interviews where people tell us that, look, we were captured by them, but we were well treated. We also have a lot of information about torture, about beatings by police. We also have a violation of human rights. And then we have this, you know, when you have a war like this, when you have a situation like this, the behavior of the government, security and defense forces is very important. And the government forces are not very different in the war as the other side is. It means that the population and some of the people with whom I have spoken, they have told me things about, you know, torture, etc., done by the army. And I was speaking the other day to some high-ranking soldier, and he said, look, in the attack of Mocimboa and Palma, the citizens, the residents, the population probably helped the Machababos, and a lot of soldiers were killed. So he said, if I was the commander in the field, I'm sure that I would lose my head, and I would treat them as the enemy, because my men are killed. He said, if one man of my platoon was killed, I'm sure I would be really sad, and you know, I would think differently.
And how many people would you say are affected right now in Mozambique?
At this moment, the numbers are, they change every time, now and then, but what we have about deaths, it's not very clear. About people who have run away or IDPs, the number of IDPs goes around 50, 60,000 or more.
So are there more groups?
For me, one of the serious groups doing atrocity is a private security company from South Africa called the DAG. And they are really should be tried, and they should be accounted for the killing of many civilians and use of illegal weapons. They use this gas canisters, these normal gas canisters, and they put their chemicals, the people say white sulfur, they put other kind of little materials inside, and they throw it on top of places where there is a concentration of people. And Mr. Dag, the owner of the company, has been now, their contract is more or less suspended, but they are inside Mozambique. They're sitting in some of the nature reserves, and they say that they left the war, and now they are doing anti-poaching. But basically, they are in fact military men, and they're waiting. At this moment, I would say there is a chaos in the field. There is chaos also on the information which comes. Everyone tries to have some idea of what is going on. And it is what I would say is that of the 16 districts of Cabo Delgado, 8 or 9 are under attack of the insurgents. And for me, the situation is similar to the War of Liberation, where these are, I would call them semi-liberated areas. It means areas where the state exerts authority with much difficulty. Means that the hospitals are destroyed, there is no health, the administrators are not there, the workers of the state administrations have run away, and the big problem for me is the question of the IDPs and the opinion of the population. I was in Pemba 4 or 5 months ago. I went to all the areas which were accessible. So it means I couldn't go to the northern part. I didn't go to Moeda, but I was in Mompoez, Balama, and other districts, Chiur, Pemba, and went also to see some of the refugee camps, IDPs camps. And with everyone I spoke, with some nuns, people from the church, people in the mosques, and they all have the discourse of the population is that this is done on purpose. They want to send us away from our land so they can take it, and they don't want to pay anything. And in fact, the locals don't want to go anywhere. They want to go back home. They want peace and they want to go back home. So when I was speaking to some of these people in this, with these IDPs in various camps and in other places, and they told me, look, my friend, we have a serious problem. This is how do you say, it's like in Rwanda, there is a genocide, but this genocide is worse than the one they had in Rwanda, because people in Rwanda were killed and no business, okay? Here, we are not killed physically, as we are alive, but we are dead. We lost our land, we lost our family, we lost our trees. We don't know if we can go back home. We want to go back home, and they are sending us to other places. And in the places where we go, we are going to be slaves, because we don't have land. We are going to occupy other people's land, and then we will have to pay them. We will have to work like sharecroppers or whatever. So they know how it works from their own experience.
What should be done to fix? Because when you talk right now, you're talking about everything from natural resources, human rights violations. We are talking about the shrinking space, poverty, economics. There's so many factors right now. So what can we do? Stop the war.
What we have to do now is stop the war. I don't know where is my Professor Galton, but if he's still alive and all his colleagues, we should go to the front and lay ourselves on the road to say stop, because we can't continue having this situation. It's horrible. And when this started officially, they say it started in 2017 in attack near Musimbo, 2 attacks one in Musimbo, another in a road block about 60 kilometers in the district, but far from the town. And when a friend phoned me saying, look, there is this attack, I said, oh yes, the omelette is ready. Means that the eggs were already there and we could see them. And what were the eggs? Were that people were being kicked out of their land. They wouldn't receive even, they had the right, for example, in the villages to receive 20% of the taxes paid by companies which exploit forests, etc., but they never got the money. The money would come and stay with ABC, but not go down to the most of the population. Repression was very common. And some of the young people who joined this group were traders in Musimwa, they were traders in the bush. So it is a bit complicated. We have to see how we'll go on, but everyone thinking about, we need external support, we need more army support, training, etc. Fine. If the Mashababus are using guns, we should also have a strategy of response, which has to take the military thing. But what we have to do is to work with the communities, with local chiefs, with the churches, with the mosques, with all these different groups to stop the war. And we have to stop it. It should have been stopped yesterday. There is no, in my opinion, there is no military solution, because even if they bring all these 3,000 men they're speaking about, planes and so on, people will always, the fire will always restart again. And that is the situation for me in Cabo Delgado. There is a lot of hunger. There are places where there is no health services, even in near Afungi, where the French had their camp, the Total had their camp. Palma also doesn't have the hospital. And when you have violence, violence creates violence, and then it's very difficult to say, you know, who is responsible for burning this house or that house. And we really need an effort, a national, regional, international effort to stop the war.
Looking then at the future, even if it's hard to do that right now, if we're looking at the young people, and can they dream, study, work, and live in this country and feel like they have a future?
Look, I'm not there. I'm 2,000 kilometers sitting in my office with paintings of my daughter, light, etc. And I really am depressed. I don't know. I don't think I have a future because, you know, I lived through the Liberation War, Frelimo against the Portuguese, 62 to 74. Then we had a lull during no war for some months. And then again, we had the Renamo War. And now we have this one. So what about it? And the economy is into shambles. There is so many cases of corruption. There was a disappearance of billions of dollars in some scheme where they tried to construct some fishing companies and so on. There are a lot of leaders in jail, but nothing very clear. So you don't know. I was speaking to a student some minutes ago, and he would say, look, I have a master's, but I don't have a job in Maputo. So you imagine, and then with COVID together with it. So what I'm going to do? So really, it's very difficult to dream about the future we wanted. We have to work hard every day, try to create conditions to better understand what is going on. But it is important that all the people who have worked, organizations like yours, countries like yours, Sweden, the other Nordic countries, UN, everyone have to get really engaged to stop this war as rapidly as possible. So let's see. There are moments where I think that there is a lot of people who think like me that we need peace, and there are people working for it. So I'm not the only one speaking about peace. There are other NGOs and conferences and even international experts involved in it. But the level of information which we get is not so good as it should be. To have participation of the citizens in this process, it's necessary to give exact information, to give as much information you have so people can make their own minds and their own ideas about it.
Yes, that is really true. Information is often the key to solving a lot of issues. So now we talked about so many different perspectives, but how about the poverty situation in the country and the democratization projects that's been going on.
But you know, the question is that it is not only a problem of democratization or poverty. Yes, there is a problem of democratization and working of the structures, but we have been seeing the situation deteriorating in these areas in the last 20, 30 years. And people thought that with these big companies and oil and gas and so on, you pour money on top of a problem and the problem disappears. No, what has happened is the contrary. As much money goes around, the population becomes poorer, repression is bigger, corruption is bigger, and a lot of these kids who joined the Machababos were very good traders. Huh? They were not, you couldn't say that they were sitting around doing nothing. They did their business. They also did Kandonga, black marketing, etc., etc. That was the way. And they would say, look, when I take 5 planks to Tanzania of redwood to sell, the police is always running against me. But there are companies which take thousands of cubic meters of wood and the police doesn't do much, or if does something, they pay them. So it is something which we have to take into consideration and think that these people ended up using, you have some of this, now the United States are saying that this is the Islamic State. They want to call it Islamic State Mozambique. As far as I can understand, there is no base for that. What we know is that this is a local insurgency. Probably they could have some international support to propaganda, etc., but in reality, we haven't seen much about it. So what we should also know is that the violence perpetrated by the state will always create a movement of people into this organization.
Yes, and now we talked a lot about the soldiers and the men within the country, but how about the women? How is they doing in Mozambique right now?
We have to look at the question of the gender, because males can be from one party or another, they can be from one group or another group in the war, but they tend to treat the women as, how do you say, something for consumption, sexual consumption, having them to work for them, etc., etc. So it is someone from the Red Cross said once that going to jail in Cabo Delgado is like being condemned to death. I hope they are good. They are working on it. But I think that all international agencies and also the NGOs which always helped Mozambique, like the Swedish Nordic NGOs, you have huge number of people and organizations. And I think that we all should pull together and start a serious campaign of giving peace a chance, and I think we have to do that.
I think that is perfect words to end this conversation, that we need to come together and give peace a chance. Thank you so much for today and for sharing all your thoughts and all your wisdom with us today about Mozambique. We're very grateful to have you here and hope to hear more from you in the future. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I hope we can, it can be a small seed which contributes to peace, and that's what we have to do.